In this video, I will explain the first argument in my video, A Brief Argument for Christianity. The argument goes as follows. Everything that exists has existence in itself or in another. If all beings had existence in another, there would be no existence. Hence, there must be at least one being having existence in itself. Premise 1 is derived from Scott Sullivan's book, St. Thomas Aquinas and the Principle of Sufficient Reason. It can be divided into two parts. A, the idea that something has to have existence for it to exist, and B, that it either has to have existence in itself or in another. To prove the first part, we have to first define what we mean by existence. The way I'm going to define existence here is simply whatever it is that makes something distinct from nothing. Why do we need such a thing? According to the principle of the identity of indiscernibles, no two things which are the same in every way are distinct from each other. So, if a thing which exists is different from something which does not exist, it follows that there must be something about the existing thing which makes it different from the non-existing thing. That differentiating feature is what I'm going to call existence. It's important to note that I'm not making any claims about what the differentiating feature is here beyond the mere fact that it is the differentiating feature between existence and non-existence. Nor am I saying that what it means to have the differentiating feature is anything. I'm not making any claims on what it is to have the differentiating feature. I say this because I find that materialists often jump to thinking I'm saying existence is like a fundamental particle that has to be added to things that exist, or some kind of mysterious ethereal thing that is added to existing things. I'm not making a claim at all on this point. All I'm claiming is what follows from the principle of the identity of indiscernibles, that there has to be a distinguishing feature between existence and nothing. Another objection some present is that the difference between something that exists and something that does not exist is simply that the thing which exists is instantiated or has properties or some other explanation. Again, I'm not saying that this is not the case at this point. If what made existing things different from nothing were simply being instantiated or having properties, then that would be what existence is. I'm not, in this argument, saying anything about what existence is beyond defining it as that which makes something distinct from nothing. And if you don't agree with that definition, then maybe you're talking about something different, right? I can define existence, the word existence, however I like. There's no magical dictionary in the sky, as I like to say. A final objection I have heard is that it isn't possible to differentiate something from nothing, because nothing isn't a thing. This objection seems very misguided. You don't have to believe nothing is a thing to believe that there is a feature of existing things which distinguish them from nothing. Also, if there were no such a differentiating feature, how would we know that something exists, but other things do not exist? Now, as far as the second part of the first premise, this is obviously true because having existence in itself or in another exhausts all possible places a differentiating feature could be. There is nothing beyond a thing itself or another thing. I think this part will really be non-controversial, so I'm not going to continue any further on this. The second premise in this argument essentially rules out an infinite regress where there is no being without existence in itself, just beings with existence in another. As an analogy, suppose I tell you I have $1 million in the bank. Now, suppose you go to this bank and the bank tells you that I do indeed have $1 million, but that this bank has that $1 million in another bank, say Bank 2, which has the money in Bank 3, etc., on into infinity. If this is true, then none of the banks have my $1 million in them, which also means I don't have $1 million in the banks at all, right? There's no bank in which my $1 million exists. So I don't have $1 million. The entire idea of this sort of infinite regress is really just trickery, because in order to have something, it has to exist somewhere. You can't just keep deferring to something else infinitely without the thing in question actually existing. So my argument, more formalized, goes as follows. If there is an infinite series where every member has existence in another, no member has existence in itself. If no member has existence in itself, no member can have existence in another. Therefore, an infinite series where every member has existence in another is impossible. And if that's not possible, then the conclusion follows that there must be at least one being having existence in itself. In other words, there must at least be one being which has that by which things are distinguished from nothing in itself. I entitled this proof "The Existence of God" because that which has existence in itself really is the basic definition of God. This is based on the definition of God given in Exodus 3:14, where Moses asks God how he ought to refer to God. God says, "I am who am," in response. As the Catechism of the Catholic Church states, the revelation of the ineffable name, "I am who am," contains then the truth that God alone is. The Greek Septuagint translation of the Hebrew Scriptures, and following the Church's tradition, understood the divine name in this sense: God is the fullness of being and of every perfection, without origin and without end. All creatures receive all that they are and have from him, but he alone is his very own being, his very being. And he is of himself everything that he is. So having a proof that ends with something which has existence in itself is key to proving the existence of God. It doesn't prove that God is one, omnibenevolent, etc., but this is proved in other arguments. It's also limited in the sense that it doesn't prove technically that God's essence is existence. It just proves that God has existence. And, that could mean that there's other things in addition to that. Maybe existence is just a part of God. But as I said, these objections or potentialities are disproven in later arguments.